It's time for connection of the mind, body, and emotions. Welcome to a place where you can unplug, tune in, and create. It's time for Conjuring the Human Spirit with your hosts, Allison Parr-Plasha and Sean McGuire Meeks. You're invited. Let's begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Let's conjure the human spirit.
Let's do it.
My name is Sean McGuire Meeks, and I'm sitting here with beautiful Allison Parr-Plasha.
Welcome. We are so glad you joined us.
So what are we going to talk about today, Allison?
We're talking about willingness. Willingness is the key, which is something that you eloquently talk about quite a bit. It's infectious. So I'm excited about today.
It really is like a foundation stone of all my spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
About that. Can I tell a story?
Oh, absolutely.
So I was a drunk mess, and I could not pull it together for a long time. And I had found Louise Hay. Do you know who Louise Hay is?
I love Louise. I was just looking at her yesterday.
Have you ever read the book, You Can Heal Your Life?
Yes.
I mean, it's so 90s and so relevant still today. It was really around self-love and the ability to change the tape that was happening in my own head from the domestication of Sean McGuire. That was a process that I was willing to go on with the help of Louise Hay. That included notes on the mirror, daily affirmations that she suggests in the book, an understanding that my thoughts were creating my reality. And back then they called it New Age. I was here for it because, again, as I said, it was ostracized by Jesus people. Mm-hmm. And so, but still a spiritual being in search of spiritual practices. And when I found this, I realized that there was this internal self-dialogue that was so horrible that I was crying out in pain audibly for the things that were happening and things I was saying to myself in my mind. So, for example, I'd be in the bedroom or be in the bathroom all alone, and these horrible thoughts about myself were like lashings, almost as if I was being whipped. And I would go, ah. And Jeff would be in the other room. He'd say, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." And that's how bad it was.
Wow.
And it got worse when I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Through her teachings and through that book, and if you guys that are listening have not read that book, pick it up. I give it away. I don't even have one on my shelf. Oh, wait, I see one. I do have one. I always try to have one because I've given about 50 copies away. It's been so instrumental in my life. And if you haven't looked at it, take a peek at it. It was a journey to loving myself. It was a journey to getting rid of patterns that were no longer serving me, that I was able to get rid of by doing her affirmations and being willing to step up to the mirror and tell the truth.
Yeah, and she was a woman. She has since passed, but she was a woman who really walked her talk. She healed herself from cancer through a lot of different modalities, but really, ultimately, her modality, if we were to really look at your prayer from the session that we addressed pride, when we talked about that, is that she loved. This was a woman who embodied love.
Well, she was instrumental for my people in the AIDS crisis and really working with them because the essence of her work was I don't know, was she a therapist, like licensed? Do you know?
No, I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
But I know she sat with people and she organically, through the spirit of her, equated the things that were happening emotionally in people's lives to the disease that was in their bodies. Anytime if my left elbow hurts, I will go to the book, go to the back, look it up. What does elbow hurting mean? Oh, elbow hurting means I'm afraid to move to the next step. I'm afraid to grab something. What does my left foot hurt mean? Left foot is about unconsciousness. Right foot is about conscious moving. These sorts of things. So always checking in with her to see, first of all, is that true?
Yeah.
And often it is. It's something unresolved or something I'm going through in the moment, which alleviates, okay, now all I need to do is get rid of this emotional thing and this pain will go away.
Yeah, I mean, she was very instrumental. I think we go through these different periods throughout the centuries where she really connected the mind-body connection.
Yeah, before it was a thing.
Yeah.
They called her like New Age, crazy, blah, blah, blah now,
Meanwhile, she cured herself from cancer, and
and so many others.
yeah. And so, like in her initiation, she was able
beautifully
to
said.
sit
Say that
with
again. I'm sorry.
others through her own initiation.
Yeah.
Because you and I have talked about our own initiations and how frustrating it can be and why is this happening. I know I certainly, have gone through that many times, but like through her own initiation, she was able to walk with people in such a profound way. People who've been rejected, right? Because we just going back to the AIDS crisis, right? There was just so many tragic misconceptions, and she moved into rather than away. So talking about willingness is the key. This is a woman who said yes.
Yeah, and she allowed me to say yes to myself, to loving myself. It was hard work in the beginning, just looking in the mirror with that affirmation. And they always begin, in the infinity of life where I am, all is perfect, whole, and complete. And then would prattle on to whatever the affirmation was. So
Yeah.
the infinity of life where I am, all is perfect, whole, and complete. That kind of ties into, too, I learned in the coactive coaching, right? Which is what?
Everyone is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole.
Perfect, whole, and complete.
Yeah.
And so she carried me to this place where a lot of that mental whipping that was happening in my own head that had been implanted throughout my childhood and both by others, the agreements that I made from others and also the agreements in myself, I was able to heal on so many levels. And the one thing I could not heal was this alcoholism. And I didn't even know, I didn't call it alcoholism. I just knew I've tried to stop drinking so many times. And I did it in the same fashion I just described by putting notes on the mirror and making promises to my husband around, we'd been together 7 years at that point. So he had seen 7 years of struggle. He's such a good man, and I'd found such a good one that I didn't want to be the mess that I was, and I couldn't fix it with the book that You Can Heal Your Life. Everything else, I made dramatic changes, but with that, I could not. So the story goes that I got out the vodka and I started drinking. And poor Jeff, when he came home and saw vodka on the counter, he knew it was on. And I was on a binge. I was gonna do something. And so normally I would rope him in to my shenanigans. And for a long time, he played along. And I think he was seeing a therapist, and they were like, don't play along. Like, started teaching him some Al-Anon principles around not enabling the alcoholic. And so on that day, and it could have been he didn't play along, or I would also pick a fight with him intentionally just so that I could go drink alone and be alone. And so on this day, I had a friend with me, and he was also drinking heavily, whether he's alcoholic or not. I don't think he's claimed that, but we were out for days between alcohol and cocaine and whatever other drugs I could get my hands on. And in Atlanta back then, the bars were open 24 hours a day. So there were 4 bars that were open 24 hours a day. You could go in and not leave for days.
Wow.
And so there I was for days. I just became missing from my life for days. And the phone rang, or I can't remember. We had cell phones back then. I don't even remember
No.
how
yet.
we found out that my friend who I was with, partner, put a missing persons report out on the guy that I was with. Somehow we ended up meeting in this bar parking lot to give the exchange of him to his sister. And she's screaming at me, you need to do this, and you need to go home, and you need this. And I said, Miss Bonita can take care of herself. What the hell? I got that. But it was kind of a thing that we had said all these years. How foolish that was. Miss Bonita can take care of herself. Well, Miss Bonita ended up getting home at like 5 o'clock in the morning the following day. And Jeff was in bed sleeping, and my drunk, smelly ass crawled in the bed next to him, full of shame and regret. And there I was, realizing in that moment what I had done again. that I said I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And he got up out of bed because he was going to work, because that's the man he was. And he got up and he got in the shower, and I was overcome with regret and shame. And I couldn't face him again because I had made a promise I wouldn't drink. And so I got up out of bed and hopped in my truck, and I drove. And the only thing I could think about was, how was I going to kill myself?
Wow.
Because I couldn't fix this. I tried all the notes on the mirrors. I tried all the things. I'd made so many promises. This I couldn't fix. And in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, they call it this moment of clarity. And I had this moment of clarity where I realized that there was a gay AA meeting someone had told me about. It's called the Galano Club in Atlanta. And they had not a nude meeting. That's what my mother-in-law called it, a nude meeting, but a noon meeting. And so I went to the noon meeting, but it was like 12:55. And I walked in there, and I walked in just at the time where they said, does anyone want to surrender for 24 hours and pick up the white chip? Pick up this white chip of surrender, the white flag, the white chip of surrender. And I got up and I grabbed the chip, smelly, in my work clothes, just had been out for days, hadn't slept for days, cracked out on whatever drugs I was taking. And I sat back down and just sobbed in self-pity, just wept and sobbed and wept and sobbed. And everybody else was up and mingling because the meeting was over. And this guy came up behind me, and he put this card underneath my face that was dripping tears on my legs. And on it, it said, willingness is the key.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, hi, my name is Warren. And would you like to go grab coffee? And I said, yes. And so we went to Starbucks and we sat down, and, he said, I can help you. And do you want me to help you? And I said, yes. And he said, well, are you willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober? And I said, I am. And he said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your story. So I told him about my religious bringing on this, whatever. And then I said, so will you be my sponsor? And he said, yes. And I said, great. Well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, I want you to go home, and I want you to get on your knees, and I want you to pray. I go, wait, nope, I'm not going to pray. Didn't you hear what I said? I said, I have spiritual trauma, I have religious trauma, I'm not going to, And he said, no, what I heard you say was that you were willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober.
Wow.
And I said, well, I'm not willing to do that. So this man who has a full life, fancy car, sober for a long time, I'm smelly, remembered, broken, but whatever, sat with me for 2 hours and negotiated with me on what I was willing to do. And finally, we settled on, will you go home and get on your knees and say, Warren told me to pray? And I said, yes, I can do that.
Oh, wow.
And so his card I carried, I smoked Newports back then, and pack a day, and that card that said willingness is the key was in every Newport pack. I would tuck it into every fresh pack and carry it around, realizing throughout the years, I've been sober 23 years, thankfully, and sober today, that my willingness is really the only key to my sobriety. And then as I got grounded in my sobriety, realizing that willingness is kind of the key to everything,
Yeah. So tell us more about willingness. Like, how do you define that?
Can I read something
Absolutely.
that it's kind of paraphrased from this book called The 12 and 12? So 12 steps and 12 traditions. It kind of gives a synopsis of the big book, which is the AA book, they call it Big Book. And this is about willingness. And I'm going to use it so that it's relevant for our listeners to have it, not just alcohol, because it really isn't just about alcohol. And I think that's important because as I got grounded in my sobriety, I use it in my sobriety all the time. My willingness to stay sober is key to a faith that works, because it's really about faith in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's about my willingness is the key to a faith that works, because I didn't have a faith, I didn't want a faith, whatever, but I needed to have willingness to at least have one, and then faith showed up. So I'm going to use it in a more broad sense now, and it's It goes like this: growing in our lives is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. There's only one key, and it's called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself. And looking through it, we shall see the pathway, by which is an inscription, and it reads, "This is the way to a place that works."
Profound. And user friendly, like you said, like this has guided you in your sobriety. And I do personally also love the 12 steps. And yet this is so applicable to all of us. I even find like within coaching, when people sign up and they talking about one big juicy experiment and they say yes to themselves, it's like the universe opens up and things just get expedited and things start to move quickly. And, sometimes people are like, well, why should I hire a life coach? Like I could do this on my own. And a lot of people can absolutely do it on their own, but there's something about the profound willingness, saying yes to themselves that
And
just
being seen
expedites.
in it, right,
Yes.
Allison? So
Yeah.
as a coach, I know I've got this call with you the next week. And I've said that I'm willing to do this. And so there's accountability around doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I can't be accountable to the guy in the mirror yet, at least I can be accountable to you who I'm paying to hold me accountable. And also recognizing and realizing that there's learning in doing and there's also learning in not doing. So I cannot be willing to do what I said I was going to do this week. And so the question then is, what did you learn by not being willing?
Yeah.
There's still learning.
Absolutely. But there is something about when we're willing, things they just expedite. So, for example, you've talked about your sobriety. Like once you chose sobriety, like your life then was expedited and your level of success just, right? It just,
Oh, it catapulted.
right? I
Yeah.
like that word.
More importantly for me, and I try to say this to people in recovery that I work with, is that I'm an honorable man. Like I can sit on this microphone and say I'm an honorable man, and no one can step up and refute that. I know that I am. And I may certainly make mistakes and own them, and certainly not perfect. My goal is honorability. And I can't do that when I'm drinking. All the character defects that show up when I drink, when I used to drink, are there and uncontrollable by me. This is why it was so, the notes on the mirror didn't work because it was so compounded by so many different variables. So it was, first I had to stop the one, then I could begin to work on my gossip, then I could begin to work on my shame, then I could begin to work on, I had to get rid of that ingredient that was the fueling all of the other. And then the authentic human spirit of me could really genuinely take a look at these things and say, are they serving? Is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? And to be able to let them go.
I love your word, like ingredient, because we talked in earlier episodes about just like what clouds the human spirit. And for you, and for many, alcohol, drugs was clouding. That was the main ingredient. So you removed that, which allowed you to become that much more closer to the human spirit.
No idea that that would be the byproduct of.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't consciously do that. I just knew if I kept drinking, I would die. I might lose my husband. I knew that I was longing for something that would work, because I couldn't find anything that worked so far.
Yeah.
But no matter what, I talk about alcoholism because that's the root of where this came from. But I apply it everywhere. My willingness to walk the labyrinth every morning, your willingness to go for a walk around the property and not break your walking streak, your willingness to get to bed at a certain hour, your willingness to begin. I can't begin for a client of mine, and I let go of that. I don't know about you. I mean, I've got my own work to do, and it's constant. This continued growth within myself, sometimes over and over and over again, not one and done. Some things one and done. Some things are just over learning and doing and saying, I'm willing. Okay, let it go.
Yeah, but like if I heard you correctly, it's like we can't make somebody willing. We can't change people to be willing. So yes. So for me, a lot of times when I'm working with clients, a lot of it is, and Dee is in the room right now from D Media. There's something about her that I keep reiterating, she and Megan, where they're safe. And so when someone I notice is not quite yet ready or willing, I focus a lot of my energy on just building safety to
Well,
see.
you're a bigger woman than I am because I'm not working with you. If you're not willing, we're not even working. I'm not here for your money. I'm going to take your money because you've got to have some skin in the game. You've got to put some energy in it, and I'm going to give you some tools, but you've got to be willing. And you go to my website and look at the bottom. I've got a big banner and it scrolls, and it says your willingness is the magic key.
But I think there's different layers and levels to willingness. So I think if someone signs on to coaching, that's a level of willingness. That's a powerful yes.
Agreed.
Unless once in a blue moon, somebody else pays for coaching, whether it's a parent or a corporation, and they have at different times been my toughest clients because they're not invested or willing.
Well, it's like
That's pretty
pushing
rare.
rope. It's really like pushing rope. I mean, someone's got to. I'm willing to motivate and help. Certainly, that's what my calling is. It's my purpose. And some people need therapy, not coaching.
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist.
Yes.
I'm a coach.
Ditto.
And so, really having a dialogue. If you go to my website, and there are different ways you can work with me, one-on-one. You can come here to the farm. You can be in a workshop. Any which way, you're going to reach out to me, and we're going to have a conversation. And we're going to talk about it because I want to work with you as much as you want to work with me, or you might not want to work with me and I may not want to work with you. It's all love, good orderly direction, God, good orderly direction. If it's not a good fit for me, I'll say, I think you're a better fit for Allison. It's not that I'm dismissing. It's just, it's not a good fit for me. We're going to do this because we want to be successful for you. And we're going to work together because it works for me and it works for you. But pushing a rope is so frustrating, and so to have someone that's willing is what's, for me, working with me is what's required. And that's just a crack of the door. I'm not asking for a sign this oath.
Yeah.
Just are you willing to, just like he said to me in the Starbucks that day, are you willing to go to any lengths to accomplish this mission that we're on together? The answer is yes or no. If the answer is yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I got all kinds of hocus pocus. Let's throw at it. And let's see what we can do.
It was cool just listening to your story because it was very coactive in that the two of you co-created a design that worked for both of you.
Yeah, God bless him. God bless Warren. I'm so grateful for him to hang in there with this broken, drunk young man who had so many expectations of someone who was offering up their time for free.
Well, I'm sure
to
he had been there.
Well, that's the 12th step.
Right?
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics who still suffer. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's what I continue to do. And I'm not talking about working with another alcoholic. I'm talking about in my mentoring practice. You got to show up willing. In alcohol, you just have to have a desire to stop drinking if we're going to work together as a alcoholic and sponsee, as a sponsor.
So would you say the willingness is the key, is also like you could interchange with just saying yes as your mantra? Yes to life.
Yeah, I mean, it is, yes, sure. Yeah. I mean, you, whoever out there listening, if you wanted to work with me, you would have a mission of what we're working on. So it's your directive. It's something that you really want to work on. So you say yes to that. Saying yes and being willing to work on that. Let's do it. To have something and then say, I'm not willing to do anything about it.
For some reason, and again, I could be off, so correct me if I'm going like off course, but like when we moved to Savannah, My husband and daughter moved 6 months, I think, before me, and our daughter was starting high school. But I just said, as a family, let's have our mantra become yes rather than no. So if you're invited to a party, even though you might not want to go, can you say yes? And our daughter really took it to heart. And she is, naturally introverted and on the quieter end. But then I have just watched that train leave the station and pick up momentum. And that yes has led to incredible opportunities for her. And they've been hard, her yeses. They've been hard for her, not easy. But she does it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's exactly on track. Kind of goes back to, just depends on motives and intentions. I mean, there's just so many different layers to why we say yes. I've heard so many women say, I just need to be able to say no.
Yeah, I was just thinking that my mind just went there as well.
And no is good too.
Because sometimes saying no is ultimately saying yes to ourselves.
Yes.
Like if we're full and someone's like, can you take on this event?
No.
By saying no, we're ultimately saying yes to ourselves.
I'm tired. I don't want to go to dinner. No. So, yeah, within reason,
It's a balance, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm thinking about willingness is the key, I'm thinking about fundamental change in my life, in the life of my client. When you say this is what you want, is it really what you want? Because you have to move your feet, you have to do the homework. And if you don't do the homework, again, it's learning and doing, and there's learning and not doing. So, and I just say again, okay, you didn't do the homework. What was the learning and doing? When you work with me, you pay in advance because
Ditto,
it gets
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, and accountability, like that's why I do have people pay in advance, because when the going gets rough, you hang in there. Because a lot of times we naturally want to disappear when things start to get rough.
I worked with this multimillionaire in Texas as a client, and I tripled my fee to work with her. And it was like, I think I charged her $12,000 or something like that to work with her. And it wasn't because I knew she was a multimillionaire, but it really was about her having some skin in the game.
Yes.
Because what happens is there's this word called homeostasis. And homeostasis is about reverting back to the way that things were simply because that's the way things were. And nature works like that. They use that word in medical terminology. My husband says they use it all the time in the lab. Had a friend that had a knee replacement, and her knees went back to, didn't matter that there were new knees in there, they went back to the old way of going in the opposite direction because that's the way they were the whole time. And so in coaching, you say, this is what I want to work on. There's like this threshold point in which you're there in this uncomfortable place because you're growing, and you guys take one more step. You're willing to take one more step, and then you've gone past the place of homeostasis, and now you're in a forward trajectory in your life to accomplish the goal and mission that you want to accomplish. And if you don't hang in there and wait until the miracle happens, then you really miss out on it. And it just so easily reverts back to, and all the work you've done to that point is lost.
Yeah.
And so that's why people pay in advance, because when it gets hard, then you've already paid.
I love how you're articulating this, because
And you're like, crap, I've got skin in the game. I got $200 each time we're meeting that I'm going to lose if I don't keep going. And it's all in service of you.
yeah, and you are literally, like I tell my clients, like after working with me, you will never go back to your old way of being. You might regress a little bit, but you won't stay there very long. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're creating a new homeostasis for yourself.
Yes.
And like you said, that in between, as you're kind of, because like, I used to have a whiteboard in my office, but it's like when you've got the homeostasis line at the bottom, and then chaos, and then a new homeostasis. But that chaos part is when I say, like, your gremlins, your saboteur, that inner critic, they have martini parties. They invite all their friends over. They get really loud. They get really obnoxious. And that's when I usually get the calls or the texts from clients like, oh my God, I think I made a mistake,
Yes.
and I'm like, I'm just going to normalize that.
Yes.
That's what happens.
I do that in the beginning. In our discovery session, when we first meet, we meet for hours. Like, if you've ever been to the therapist and you have an hour, right? And you're in there, it's like 55 minutes, and you're like, and my mother molested me. And he's like, well, that's all our time for today.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, I just dropped
Yeah.
By the way, my mother didn't molest me, but I'm just saying, you drop some big bomb in the session, you finally get a breakthrough and the time's up.
Yep.
I don't do that. Not me. When we're working together, we're done when it's done. And particularly in the discovery sessions in the beginning, it's hours long.
So I do 2 hours, but I think I'm more like I do, cut it off. But in therapy, they call it like dropping a bomb. But like I try to create a situation where that doesn't happen. But that's where it is different from therapy, where I encourage my clients to be in touch in between sessions, whether it's through texting or emails or voice texts, so we can keep the momentum going.
Absolutely.
Some people take advantage of that, others don't. That's okay. It's kind of like whatever works. But I find that people's life is expedited. They get to where they want to be much quicker when they're in touch.
Yeah, and it's awesome to see their willingness throughout the week. There's nothing that pleases me more than to see them being willing to accomplish what they say they want to do, because the homework we come up with when we're working together isn't homework I've created for them. It's homework they've discovered for themselves.
Yes, it's co-created.
Like we said in a previous episode, it's co-created. We said in a previous episode, it's like you discovered it. You know what to do. Now, are you willing to do it?
Yeah.
Your willingness is the magic key.
And can you have fun with it? Like, I don't know if you do this.
Yeah, thank you.
But
for
I'll
that.
be like,
I feel heavy over here.
I'll be like, all right, people, it's game show time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can say yes, you can say no, or you can give me a counter offer. And I ask them to do some really crazy shit, depending on what the person is. But I remember years ago, not years ago, but a couple years ago, working with a gentleman who I have a program called Redesigning Your Relationship with Alcohol. And he just, during the discovery session, just was really unhappy with his relationship. I said, okay, so here's the game show offer. 1 year, no alcohol. And he freaks out like, oh my God, la, la, la. We're laughing. He's like, ah. And then in the end, he's like, okay. And he did it. And his life changed dramatically.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where it gets tricky because there's gray area drinkers. So it's like people who would not, it depends how you define alcoholism, but nobody would identify that.
Well, medical professionals define it as a sickness.
Yeah.
And I'm ill. I'm a sickness. I'm, and so just saying I'm not going to drink for a year wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. And then there's some people.
I need a support system. I need 12 steps. I need.
And I look at it like as a spectrum.
Yes.
Right. And there's some people that, it just kind of took over the wheel, but it's like, it's significant for them, but not super significant. It just depends. But he was somebody who...
Wow. I worked with Allison for a number of years before I got trained as a coach myself, and she would drop some bombs on me. And they're supposed to make your toes curl, when they say meditate for an hour each day. For me, that was a huge thing.
Well, you get dramatic, because typically people will be like, okay, I can't do a year, but I'm willing to do 6 months.
Or a week.
But much more than they would do on their own.
Yeah, and a week would be more than I had ever done. In these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, these people that pick up a chip, a 30-day chip, a 60-day chip, a 90-day chip, and a lot of people just don't make it. So the willingness is the key to not only just drink, but also do the work. And it's like when I was talking about Louise Hay and all the different layers I didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
I had to stop this so that I could work on this, so that I could work on that, so that was on top. It was almost like, and then the 12 steps, they go in order for a reason. That's what we say. Step 1 starts there, and step 12 ends there, and you got to start with 1 and go to 2 until you get to 12. You don't go 1 to 8 to 7 to 2. And so the willingness piece is really around doing things in order. I mean, doing things the way sometimes we don't even know what the order is. But just willing, we discover that along the way, I think.
Yeah.
And with the coach, it's great because you've seen so many things in my life that I couldn't see myself, that you just said, why can't you do that? And I was like, because I can't. But why? Because I wasn't willing. And then you asked me, are you willing? Yes, I'm willing. And found out I could. And I did.
Yeah.
And I moved mountains.
Yeah.
So that's the power of willingness.
Yeah. And the power of coaching, right? Of just calling people forth, that, we do have this gift that you and I share. Like I do see people's full potential the moment they sit down.
Yeah, we talked about the spirit guides in a previous episode, I think, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, about the spirit guide holding all of their values, because you're coaching, you learn what makes you tick, why you make decisions, how you make decisions, and all of that. And we get a spirit guide that holds all of those values as true, but that's what a coach does. It really does. I mean, you always held me up here. We hold our clients up to their highest and greatest potential.
And to me, though, it's truth. It's like what I
Yes.
see. The work I've had to do is when a client doesn't see that, which is normal, but they're not like going for it, so they're not willing. And I used to have a lot of like in my dating realm before I got married, I would apply that to like boyfriends. I'm like, oh my God, I see their full potential, and they wouldn't do it. And I would like get frustrated and like pissed off. And my poor early clients, because I did start my career off as a therapist, and I worked with college students for 7, 8 years on and off. But I could see their full potential and they weren't living up to it. And I would get pissed and frustrated. So I've had to do like a lot of growing, of meeting people where they are. But I remember my boss talking to me, and she's like, Allison, like, you gotta chill out. Like, these are college students. They are literally coming in. They're just kind of checking out the scene. And, they're at a level 1. She's like, you want to go straight to the 7. And she was right. So yeah, that's always kind of, again,
Coaching's a little different too, because someone comes in with a mission, a one thing. It's a one thing we're working on while we're together, and it may not be that thing ultimately, but that one thing, and it's something again that I've not identified for them; they've identified for themselves. And so for me, I hold them to a higher standard of their willingness to work around that topic, because I don't want to be frustrated for 12 weeks while we're walking together.
yeah.
If I want you to know you're willing to work on it, because I'm going to give you tools, and we're going to discover tools together.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you tools. We're going to discover tools together that's going to resonate with you, because you're going to find them yourself. And if you're not willing to do it, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, and that has shifted for me. And
I hear you in a broad sense.
Yeah. But, because I'll see that just with non-coaching people. I'm like, oh my God, they're not living to their full potential. And I could even bring parenting into this space, where if I see my son not living up to where I see his full potential, I see where he could be, and I see these different things kind of getting in his way. But that's part of life. That was part of my life. It continues to be part of my life, where I have these blind spots where I might not be living to my full potential. So it's normal. How to meet people too. Willingness is the key, but also, meeting people where they are, and gentle and sometimes more profound nudges,
Yeah.
to shift. But sometimes I feel like people, and I think we bring this up quite a bit in our episodes, or I do, of just like, they just need to digest. They just need a minute.
Yeah, even just to say it out loud.
Yeah.
I'm always handing this little mirror I have over to a client, just to have them take a peek in it in the moment when they're focused on something that's outside themselves, recognizing that the only power we have is what's happening inside of us. And where does my power lie? And just hand them the mirror. There it is. I may not be happy with everything happening in our politics and politically with my community, but where is my power? Am I willing to step into that power? And that is to create community, to be a leader, to be an elder in my community. And the answer is yes. Where am I willing to step up
Yeah.
in my life, in that reflection in the mirror? now that
I
some of
like
the hard
that.
work is done. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's also like my mind just went towards, we also have these different seasons in our life, right? So when, like, we might have a calling, but it's like, is this the right season? Is this the right time? For some reason, that just kind of entered my head.
Yeah, that beautiful book by Richard Rohr, Father Richard Rohr, calling Falling Upward, really does talk about the seasons, the first half of life stuff, and what are we willing to do around empire building, ego building, who are we establishing showing ourselves off in the world. And then this is where we are now in second half of life. Some people stay in first half of life and never get to second half. Second half is really having done all that I've done, how can I now be of service? And what do I have to bring back to my people? And am I willing to do that? And is that okay that I'm not making all the money, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that I was making in real estate to step into this to be of service? And the answer is yes, I'm willing to do that. That's my call.
Yeah.
I hope this resonated with everyone who's listening. I hope that you can see and find willingness in your own life where you are willing to move, where you're not willing to move. We talk about it every episode around just going a different way home or signaling to the universe in some way that you're willing to change. And like Allison said a few moments ago, the universe conspiring to help you.
Yeah. And I think, like a good exercise, not everyone is a fan of journaling, but like journaling, thinking about, contemplating, like our level, doing like a real personal assessment on our level of willingness. Like, where are we? Where are we stubborn? Where are we holding ourselves back? Where do we want to go? And I think the frog, I don't know if you guys again can hear it. It's croaking away. So I think it's an agreement, but it's okay to also start small.
Yeah. And you're not alone, be it working with me, be it working with Allison, who fundamentally changed my life. And I really am grateful for you, Allison. And I have testimonials on my website that say I'm doing that for others and I'm privileged. But just realize that you're not alone and you don't have to do it alone. And there are professionals out there or people that are trained or have a call on our life, like Allison and I do, to walk with you. I say it's like, I depend on who I'm talking to, but I'll say it's like Nancy Drew, we're locking arms together and we turn on the little flashlight and we start hunting toward whatever mission it is that
I
you've
love it.
described that you want to work on, or the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
And we're turning on the flashlight and it's just me and you in this dark room walking toward wherever you want to get to. And you're not alone in that. And sometimes we go as far as we can all by ourselves. And that's as far as we could go. I could go as far as I could with Louise Hay in the mirror. And I needed something bigger than myself to help me. And there are programs like Alcoholics Anonymous if you're suffering with alcoholism. And there's coaching. And I call myself a mentor, a trusted advisor, not a coach. It doesn't resonate coaching with me, but a mentor. There are mentors and coaches and people that really are called to help you with your willingness.
And even like what's coming up for me are books, like, so you mentioned Louise Hay. Louise Hay started the Hay House Foundation, which is, a huge publishing house for personal growth books. And then you mentioned Richard Rohr. I was profoundly changed after reading St. Teresa of Avila, her book, which was written in the 1200s. So
She was a Catholic mystic? Is
yeah,
that right?
Catholic mystic, but it's like it's so powerful to know how many years later you're still having impact. So at least for me, books, listening to podcasts too, can be a way of feeling more connected with community in the bigger world.
We hope that your time with us in this episode has helped you feel more connected to us, more connected to your purpose, and have sparked a little bit more willingness in the spirit of you to accomplish those great things that your spirit is calling for you to do in your life.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you. So please, definitely, I know like at least with the Apple podcast, you can actually write in, I think a review, but also maybe questions. comments, but we'd love to hear from you.
Right, and we live in a world of algorithms, so it helps our algorithm if you like us.
That's right.
And talk about us and share our pod with others if you're finding value here. Okay?
Sharing is caring.
It is that we care about you. You're not alone. And we're
Definitely.
glad you joined us. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Allison and I are so excited to invite you to the Magic of Listening workshop here at the farm.
Woohoo!
Yeah, September 19th, 20th, 21st. It's an auspicious time because it is fall equinox. That is a time of letting go, of stepping into this new you that you want. So come to the Magic of Listening. You can stay here at the farm. We have accommodations, both cabins and in the main homestead. There's also hotels nearby. If you've got hotel points, there's Hilton and Marriott. The primary thing is we want you here. It's $600 for the weekend, plus your accommodations. Lunch and dinner are always included in the weekend. If you stay here at the farm, then breakfast is included too, and you are in for a treat.
Also, let's just get real. I'm so excited to meet all of you because each time we do an episode, I really feel like we are sitting down with all of you having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a drink of water. And so I just think it would be absolutely fun and fabulous
To do it in real time.
Oh my gosh, and to sit side by side and to meet like-minded people really in this incredible space of intimacy and connectivity.
Okay, and that's here at the farm. That's Pinehurst, Georgia. That's central Georgia. That's just 2 hours south of Atlanta. There's actually a shuttle even from the airport that will carry you just 20 minutes from the farm. And once you get behind the gates, we'll close the gates and you won't go anywhere. You'll be snug as a bug in a rug here with us for the weekend. And it's limited availability, so book now, maximum 12 people. But if there's 13, we'll make room. Mm-hmm. So you're invited.
Absolutely.
Please join us.
Yes.
We'll see you in September.
Can't wait.
Thanks for listening to Conjuring the Human Spirit. You can connect with us and even make plans to work one-on-one with Sean at McGuireLife.com and with Allison at viespritcoaching.com. That's VIEESPRIT coaching.com, or tap the links provided in the description of this episode. Until next time, remember, you're not alone.